Showtime!
When you're inside the octagon, even if you get touched, it just either pisses you off or it makes you go into shelter mode. For me, it pisses me off. When I get hit in the face, that's like a reminder that this is a fight. I remember Duke calling me and asking if I was ready to take a fight. I just had a hand surgery. I broke my hand for the first time. And I was like, yeah, I mean, I'm just a couple weeks out. I think I should be able to take this fight. I cut my vacation a week short, go home, start training. I was supposed to fight Anthony Njokuanji for my first fight in Chicago. And the hand wasn't healed up enough to take the fight, so I had to push it back. And I remember feeling disappointed, like I missed my shot, but you know, it worked out even better for me. The first day of the WC was it was crazy. You know, I was fighting in Sacramento, California for my first fight. I remember it being like just different. You know, going fighting in front of a couple hundred people to a couple thousand people was definitely a big difference. All the media before the fight, interviews, people asking questions, press. It was a huge difference in that sense. But I remember walking out, and then when I got into the octagon, I felt very confident and comfortable out there. It just felt like I belonged there. I remember the first kick he threw was a body kick, and it hit me right in the solar plex, and I felt pain. I was like, oh man, that was a decent kick. I gotta come at this guy hard. So I throw a right punch, right high kick. He catches my high kick. I jump for a guillotine. Almost had the guillotine. He drops me down on the mat. Head pops out. I transition right away for an arm bar. He defends super nice. And then he got a little bit of ground and pound going, and I ultimately caught him with a triangle. And I remember when I locked in that triangle, was done. I could remember in my head, I was like, oh, it's over, I got this guy. He taps, and it was the first win of my WEC career, and it just was an amazing feeling.
Anthony Pettis' corner is telling him to pull his head down as Campbell is trying to posture up, and he has to tap. Mike Campbell is forced to tap, and Anthony Pettis does the deal.
I remember being in my hotel room just thinking like, man, I'm pretty good at this sport. You know, this guy was huge. He was like coming down from 170, super shredded it up, and it didn't really matter. You know, I was so confident and so calm out there that my skills ultimately took over. I took that fight because I needed to get paid. I quit my job, you know, teaching martial arts. I wasn't getting any income at all. I remember I just bought a motorcycle right after the Mike Campbell fight. And I had a motorcycle accident like 2 months later. It tore my left shoulder up, AC joint. It was like a really bad surgery. Shouldn't have took that fight with Bart, but it was like one of the things I needed a payday. And I learned a lesson out of that, you know, don't ever take fights based on pay. But I feel like I fought the fight good. I couldn't keep my left arm up, so if you watch the fight, my left hand's always all the way down because I didn't have any strength in my left shoulder. And I just toughed up and just took the fight. Losing that first fight, it was a decision. I dropped him in the third round. I remember I could have finished that fight, and that was the worst feeling. Like all I had to do was turn it on a little more technique, and I should have won that fight. But it was back to the drawing board again. You know, you got to like go back to your camp, go back home, and figure out what went wrong, how to fix it. And ultimately, for me, I just felt like it was an injury. You know, like all of my losses, except for the RDA fight, were fights that I lost to myself. I made that happen because of either a mental thing or injury judgment, or it's a lot of things that I just feel like I controlled the losses. The next fight, Danny Castillo in Ohio, I go out, I knock him out. Second fight was Kerry Alexis, and you know, it was a pay-per-view event for WEC.
He's Alex Kerry Alexis. Pettis trying to finish, and it is all over.
And then I got Shane Roller. He was supposed to be next in line for a title shot. So it was kind of one of us two, Shane Roller and myself, to be next in line for Ben Henderson. Ben Henderson was like smoking through everybody. So I knew I was a must win. I go out there, I submit Shane Roller, and then it was the final WEC. We knew it was the last card, and they matched us up for the main event for the title shot. I went to Arizona, Ben Henderson's hometown, to challenge him for his belt. So you know, I remember I wasn't welcomed. You know, everybody was there for their hometown guy. Even in the arena, when I walked out, it was crickets in there. And I had a couple fans, a couple family and friends that came by, but there wasn't really many people that were supporting me during that fight. And I remember it was just like one of them fights. I really had nothing to lose. Yeah, I was like a year and a half in the WEC, and I was ready to fight for the belt.
All right, gentlemen, we've been over the rules. Protect yourself at all times. Follow my instructions. Gonna keep it clean. Touch gloves, make it official.
I remember him, all of his fights were like grinding fights. He was always trying to like hold guys in the cage and win fights based on wrestling. So I was trying to get the ref to break us up and reset the match. So the yawning motion was like, come on ref, move this guy so we can actually center up and fight. I got my momentum going. I started getting my hands moving, my feet were moving under me, and I was just kind of trying to get him to bite on something so I could land something. And I gave him the shuffle. I was gonna give him a right hand, but he fell down. And then I remember I was going to the cage, but I had his back most of the fight, so I didn't want to take his back again. So I'm like, let's try to switch things up a little bit. And I remember he shuffled away and kind of reset that motion. I felt like my momentum and my confidence was growing. I mean, he stayed pretty durable the whole fight. That's one thing about Ben Henderson. He stays the same fighter the whole time. He's not really, doesn't fade, he doesn't stop. He's fighting, even if he's defending a submission, he's fighting. And I remember I just had my momentum going. I felt confident. I started getting like a little swagger going, and it just felt comfortable to be out there.
And now he gains some confidence. You could see it in the swagger of Pettis as he comes forward, pops him with another stinging jab.
I remember trying to land high kicks the whole fight. He's a southpaw fighter, I'm orthodox, so the right high kick was supposed to be open, but he kept defending very well. So in that round, I was like, I gotta get creative and figure out how to make this kick land. I don't specifically remember the moment that I decided to jump off the cage, but I remember trying, like, you know what, I'm gonna go for something. After I landed, I kind of zoned back into the fight, and I'm like trying to finish him, and he didn't finish. I mean, I landed pretty flush too, but it's one of them kicks you look back on, you're like, man, I don't even know how that happened. I feel like I started a trend, using the octagon as a weapon as well. I do it a lot, in jiu-jitsu and wrestling, I mean, all that stuff, but that kick was like the moment where everybody's like, oh man, this could possibly really work. So I think, it just opened up their eyes to what's possible in the octagon. That was my first world title, so I was like, I was kind of mesmerized by the belt. I took it everywhere I went. I was like showing it off all the time. I was very proud of it. I was young, 23 years old, got my first world title. I saw him after the press conference, and he shedded some tears, after he lost his belt, and I felt for him. I know how it felt to lose. I know how hard he worked to get that belt. So just a mutual respect with Ben. They had said the news about us fighting for the UFC world title, so I'm thinking, man, I just skipped everybody in line. I'm going straight for a title shot. So I remember our fight was like August 31st, and then I had to wait till the new year, December 31st, for Frankie and Edgar to fight, or Edgar and Maynard to fight. So I'm sitting there live, my first time at a UFC event, watching the guys that I'm potentially gonna be fighting for a world title, and then they fight to a draw, and I'm like, man, what does that put me? Like, I was like kind of frustrated, annoyed, and didn't know what to do at the time. So I wanted to stay busy, and that's when I called out Clay Guida. I could have been sitting out a year, and I was healthy. I wanted to fight. Clay beat Gomi. I remember he beat Gomi, and that was the deciding factor. I was like, you know what? The guys are very close for a title shot. It makes sense to call this guy out. I trained with Clay Guida before. He's from Chicago, so I kind of knew his style a little bit. Took the fight, it didn't go my way. I remember going, I was fighting the Palms. It was a small venue, a small ring, and I couldn't find him. He had this awkward style, good wrestling, and he just constant pressure, and I couldn't put the puzzle together. He took me down and pretty much stayed on top of me for the whole 3 rounds. And it was like a frustrating loss at the same time. It was something I had to experience. I wasn't nervous. I was eager. I was ready to go. His game plan was the right game plan for me at that time. Just take me down and grind me out. So I think that loss was like the first game plan for everybody else to fight me with. And I had to fix some holes in my game. And if I would have fought Frankie Edgar or Gray Maynard, I might have not got my road to the title. So I look back at it now as it was like a blessing. For me, it pisses me off. Now I get hit in the face. That's like a reminder that this is a fight. So that's why when I started throwing bombs with him. I remember going to Texas to fight Jeremy Stevens, and it was in Houston. It was a lot of people supporting me. It was a lot of Mexican, Hispanic fans out there. And I took that fight. I was nervous for that fight. I remember that fight, I was walking out, I was like, I can't lose 2 in a row. I could get cut from the UFC. and I used my wrestling in that fight. You know, he knew he was a power puncher, so I took him down. I kind of did what Clay Guida did to me to him, and you know, I got the W there. Joe Lozon was in Japan. I remember that fight. That was kind of my come-out fight where I just felt really confident. Again, got my striking going. High kick knockout in the first round. From there, Cowboy Cerrone. Cerrone was calling me out for a long time. He wanted a title shot. We both in the WEC, and that fight took place in Chicago. I remember that fight. It was my hometown. It was kind of like my hometown. You know, going to Chicago, like an hour and a drive from Milwaukee, and I just felt I felt confident in that fight. I went in there, I already knew I was going to win that fight. You know, he was talking trash. I knew he was a dangerous guy, but I just felt like my striking was on a different level. And I went in there and got a job done in 3 minutes in the first round, body kick knockout. I wanted the knockout. I was looking to knock him out like with my hands or my kicks. I threw a cartwheel kick, I remember, and he threw like a check knee, and it landed pretty good. It was like right in my sternum. And that's when I decided to go southpaw on him and change the angle. I saw what Nate Diaz was doing with his hands, so I started boxing him up. I remember he started committing with his right hand to like trying to find a low kick, a push. And the next time he did it, I just timed a body kick perfectly right underneath it. Saw him like change his face and his neck, and his vein in his neck started sticking out, so I knew he was hurt. And it was just kill time, finish. You know, I already had the blood in the water. It was just time to finish him. Me and Cerrone didn't talk till recently, until I went out to train in Jackson's camp. We'll definitely both fight again. I mean, I think he's just a fighter, I'm a fighter. He's moving up to 170 now, so I feel like I can go train and be fine with that.
Number 1 and number 2 are set to meet with the title on the line.
Ben Henderson came back and looking amazing. I mean, he walked through everybody he fought pretty much. I mean, there were odd decisions, but he still looked resilient. Like, he just didn't care. You couldn't submit the guy, you couldn't knock him out. So 164 was holding place in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, my hometown. And you know, he was supposed to fight TJ Grant, and Grant gets hurt with the concussion injury. I was supposed to fight Jose Aldo, that didn't come about. And somehow it just worked out for my hometown, me fighting Ben Henderson for the lightweight title. And I had to jump at the opportunity. I took the fight on like 4 weeks notice too. I didn't know I was gonna fight him until 4 weeks before the fight. And I just remember like it was cram time, like I had to go. I fought this guy before, it was round number 6. And I kind of just felt like I had the upper hand already. I remember walking out in Milwaukee, at the time it was called the Bradley Center. The crowd went crazy. You know, it was my hometown. I remember I could see everybody's faces. I knew my mom was there, all my family's there. And I just felt confident. I just felt like it was my time. I remember talking to Duke. Duke's like, yo, you have nothing to lose. Go for it. You beat this guy before. Go out there, and this is round 6. Finish the job you started in the last fight. And I went with that mindset in there. Like we already had round 5. I remember he was hurt in the last round. Round 6 this was my time to finish this guy. And you know, I just went out there very confident. I already knew his game plan. You know, he was gonna try to hold me on the cage, grind me out, do those stomps and kicks. So again, once it was my turn, I had to go, and that's what I did. You know, after he got me on the cage, I think he might have got a takedown in the first round, and it was like very, very minor takedown. I remember he was kicking my legs and like trying to like just stay active. And then he broke off, and then it was my time. I landed a right body kick 5 times in a row.
And again, Henderson's got to be careful here. And again.
And then I went for a cartwheel kick again, and he ended up on top, and I transitioned right to an armbar. And I remember it being super deep. I'm like, and he was like impossible to submit, but I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna go for it. I'm gonna just try breaking this dude's arm if I can.
Here's the armbar. Beautiful job.
I had both arms trapped, it was cranking all the way, and he gave me a verbal submission. Tap, 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 tap.
That is a tight armbar. We tapped. It is all over.
No one knew what was going on. I remember I jumped up, I'm celebrating, and the arena kind of took a second to figure out what's going on because he didn't really tap. And it was just one of the moments, man. I just knew I just accomplished another goal that I set out to do. It was just a really genuine moment, man. Like, I just remember saying something about coming to this arena as a kid, and this is for everybody up in the nosebleeds, because that's where I was sitting at.
It's up for all y'all up in the nosebleeds. It's for y'all right here. You can do anything to put your mind to.
I remember just, it was just a genuine moment of happiness. You know, my mom was there, she's crying. If I see my mom cry, I cry all the time, no matter what. It was just like one of the moments where my younger brother's there, he's watching, he's wanting to be a UFC world champ, and I accomplished it, and I did it in my hometown. So probably, like I said, one of the most proud moments of my life. Yeah, I remember the Melendez fight, man. I was just eager to get back. That was my first year off with the injury. So I just wanted to get out there and show what I was capable of. Everybody was talking like, oh, Pettis is overrated, Pettis is this.
All right, here we go. You ready? You ready? Let's get it on. Here we go.
He was a little stronger than I expected on the cage. Like his clinch work was pretty good, and he was trying to pressure me back to the cage all the time. So I remember just telling myself, circle, 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 don't let me beat you to the cage. I was popping good combos, popping good jabs. But I just, again, in that fight, I just felt really confident. Like I just felt like I was only a matter of time before I figured this guy out and figured out how to finish this guy. And I caught him with some good punches. I remember like hitting him with a right hand, and he like almost went out, but he was on his feet. So I'm like, I had went 2 right hands, and both of them should have been knockout punches, but he was that tough. He just kept coming forward.
This is the type of fight Gilbert thrives on.
My coach was frustrated because that wasn't the game plan. The game plan wasn't to sit there and trade punches with this guy because he had no kicks at all, and that was my game plan, was to stand rangy and kick with him. But when you're inside the octagon and you feel like, I mean, even if you get touched, it just either pisses you off or it makes you go into shelter mode. And for me, it pisses me off. And I get hit in the face, that's like a reminder that this is a fight. So that's why when I started throwing bombs with him, and I just, like I said, I felt his speed and I felt his power. I knew I could withstand that. Like that was something I could stay in there and stay in that fire.
Anthony cracked him in the left.
When he shot that double leg was sloppy, and he's not a sloppy, he's not a sloppy guy. Like he's usually pretty precise with his movements, where there's no attempt for a guillotine. But this time he shot with his head up, so I could tell he's desperate, and that's why I just sunk it in pretty nice. But at the same time, he did the right defense, but it was too late. He did a roll, I ended up on top.
That is a tight guillotine.
And he was tapping by that already, so I didn't know if specifically that guillotine was gonna finish him, but I felt the end coming.
Anthony Pettis remains the UFC lightweight champion of the world.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, he put my hand up. He's like, "You're the new breed, man." He's like, I just couldn't catch up to you. I was always one step behind. He's like, "You're the new breed. Congrats." And he was a pretty humble guy after that, All the talk is before the fights. Usually, all the talk is before the fights, and then afterwards, there's a mutual respect. Anybody that can put their body through an 8-week training camp and do this for a living, you got to respect them. I got to fight because I had a year off, so let's get this guy out the way. And I really underestimated Dos Anjos. I didn't think he was that good. I remember going to Dallas for that fight. They lost their bags, so I didn't have any training gear, so I had to like borrow training gear for the first 2 days. It was just like one of them trips where I'm just like, oh, here goes one of these kind of trips. I remember cutting weight and not feeling the way I should feel. And I think the whole turnaround so fast was the reason for it, Like I wasn't excited about the fight. I wasn't like amped up. I was like I gotta fight because I had a year off, so let's get this guy out the way. And I really underestimated Dos Anjos. I didn't think he was that good. So I remember going to the press conferences, all the media before, he was talking me up. So we didn't have any like beef at all. So it wasn't like I was angry at this guy. I wasn't mad at him. We shook hands. First time in a while where I shook hands with an opponent, and I felt like, all right, this guy's just really respectful. And then we get to the arena, I'm warming up, everything feels kind of normal, ready to go. And going into the octagon, the first exchange, I hit him with a high kick and he just like walks through it. I'm like, all right, this is gonna be a long night. I remember that in my head saying like, all right, this is gonna be a tough fight, tougher than I planned for. And he hits me with some big punches. I never got cut before. I never got hit like that before in my life in a fight.
Oh, big left. He tagged him clean.
Yeah, the first left hand he hit me with, it was like an amateur mistake. I'm fighting a southpaw. The whole camp we drilled, cut him off, go to the right, go to his jab. For some reason, I threw a right hand and pulled off to the side, and he just went right over the top with a haymaker and just caught me right in the eye. And he broke my orbital, so like my vision's gone. I remember seeing like upside down out of my right eye, and like trying to figure out how to stop that left hand. So for 1 second, I was thinking about going southpaw. I'm like, no, my game plan's orthodox. So there was like so many thoughts going in your head, like how do you adapt from that, not being able to see out of one eye? And all I could think about is not quitting.
Right in my eyeball.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Usually I kick somebody in the head, they fall down. This guy like took it and like looked like Frankenstein coming forward more. So I knew it was gonna be a tough fight, and my whole mindset in that fight was, all right, I'm not gonna quit. I've never been finished, I've never been submitted, I've never been knocked out, I'm not gonna quit. And I gave him 5 rounds as best I could, and knowing where his skill level was at, where I was at, I shouldn't have been there that night. I should have for sure took that fight a lot more serious.
Pettis is in a lot of trouble here, and that's why he is clinging for dear life to that grip. But Dos Anjos steps over the head. That's a big part of this submission. How long can Pettis keep his hands connected here?
The Kimura was probably the closest I've ever been to finishing, and I had to make a decision in my head, like, should I tap to this and this is my way out of this fight, or do I fight this out? And for 1 second, I was thinking about quitting, and I hated that thought in my head. Like, I hated thinking, like, all right, I could tap here and the fight's over. I lost all 3 rounds anyway, so it's most likely I can just save myself 5 minutes of fighting. I could just be relaxed.
Dos Anjos keeps yanking up on it, but maintaining control. Pettis is trying to weasel out, and he did. Good job.
Something in me told me not to tap, so I fought the Kimura off. I just did the right defense, and then I could tell he was tired too. He wasn't as fresh as he was, but he still had a faster pace than I did, which was allowing him to land more shots and get more takedowns and just implement his game plan. I knew from round 1 that I was down in that fight. The whole fight I was down. I wasn't at one point in that fight where I was like, all right, I'm up on this round or I'm winning. It was a frustrating feeling because I've never felt that before. You know, I usually go out there and dominate everybody. First round finishes, second round finishes, and then I got this guy in front of me that's taking my punches, and I hit him with some good stuff. I mean, I hit him with some big kicks, I hit him with some big punches, and he was able to absorb that and keep coming forward. So it's just like one of the moments you feel like you're having a bad dream where you're hitting somebody and nothing's happening. That's what I was living. I was living that dream.
For the winner, by unanimous decision, and new undisputed UFC.
It's a weird thing. Every time we go to a decision, for some reason I already expect the judges to call the other guy's name because all of my losses are decisions. So like, if it goes to decision, I'm like, all right, either this guy won or hopefully I've done enough. For some reason, judges don't use striking as much as they use wrestling. For some reason, a takedown is worth so much compared to a jab cross landing or a high kick landing. So I kind of knew in that fight that I already lost that fight. So it was just a matter of me taking the loss like a man and coming back. Going from Jeremy Stevens to Joe Lozon, the knockout of Cerrone, the first round submission of Ben Henderson, and then all top 5 guys that I finished, that's what I'm capable of. It doesn't matter how many losses you have, how many wins you have, whoever's the best in the world at that one specific time, it will come true and it will happen. So I mean, some guys get their times longer than others, but it's just everybody's in the same rat race to try becoming the best in the world.